Europe sees growing China Russia alliance as world's top security threat. European leaders headed to Asia this week with a key message. We need to work closer together to preserve the rules based order against threats from China and Russia. Kaja Kallas, the European Union's top diplomat, and French President Emmanuel Macron emphasized the links between Vladimir Putin's war against Ukraine and Russia's deepening relationship with China during a range of appearances in Southeast Asia in recent days. It is the greatest challenge of our time, Kallas told an audience at the Shangri La Security Conference in Singapore on Saturday. When China and Russia speak of leading together, changes not seen in 100 years and of revisions of the global security order, we should all be extremely worried, she added. Kallas accused China of enabling Russia's war machine, saying 80% of the dual use goods used to fight Ukraine come from the world's second biggest economy. She noted how US Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth warned about China's threat to the rest of Asia and said Russia should also be a top concern. If you are worried about China, you should be worried about Russia, Kallas said. Western officials accuse China of supplying Russia with critical technologies, including drones, while saying that both nations have engaged in cyber attacks, acts of sabotage, and dangerous activities related to infrastructure such as deep sea cables. Kallas called on European and Asian partners to work together on tackling covert shadow fleets of tankers and to review maritime security laws. North Korea's direct support of Russia's war efforts, including missiles, ammunition, and troops, has further brought the conflict closer to home on both sides of the world. If China doesn't want NATO being involved in Southeast Asia or in Asia, they should prevent North Korea from engaging on European soil, Macron said in a keynote address in Singapore on Friday. Speaking to reporters after a meeting on Thursday of a little known defense grouping known as the Five Power Defense Arrangements, which brings together the Commonwealth nations of Singapore, Australia, Malaysia, New Zealand, and the UK, officials from several member countries acknowledged some common challenges that included risks against underwater information infrastructure in Europe and Asia. It is a complex and a new area, said General Mohammad Nizam Jafar, Malaysia's chief of defense forces. But we are looking into it. China's absence. China's defense minister Dong Jun isn't in Singapore this week. An absence that surprised European officials. It's the first time since 2019 that China hasn't sent its top military diplomat to the annual forum, where the head of delegation typically delivers a speech and takes questions on the third day of the event. The relationship between China and Russia is complicated. While on the surface, the two sides have expressed no limits friendship that has seen them step up military and political exchanges, they still have key differences. Russia has long wanted China to buy more of its non energy products and is wary of an influx of cheap Chinese goods with the exodus of Western brands. Beijing has spoken out against Russia's nuclear threats and is cautious of being perceived as too closely linked to Russia, as that could carry the risk of sanctions and hurt the potential to improve ties with Europe in a world rattled by US President Donald Trump's tariffs and volatility. Nations in the Indo Pacific and Southeast Asia are caught between the threat of dramatically higher US levies and a surge of cheaper Chinese goods that could cost them manufacturing jobs. Many rely on China economically and the US for defense, an arrangement that Hegseth challenged in a speech at the forum on Saturday. In an apparent jab at the US and China a day earlier, Macron condemned revisionist countries that seek to impose fears of coercion He called for fresh cooperation between Europe and Asia based on free trade, jointly mitigating risks and autonomous decision making. In Europe's case, that means being allied to the US as a matter of choice, but not Beijing dependent on it, while wanting to cooperate and compete fairly with China. Our shared responsibility is to ensure with others that our countries are not collateral victims of the imbalances linked to the choices made by the superpowers, the French president said. European leaders in Singapore, including Macron and Kallas, have pitched the bloc as a reliable and credible ally to nations worried about having to choose between the US and China. Europe has a long term strategic commitment to this region, Kallas said on a Saturday. If you reject unilateralism, bullying and aggression and instead choose a cooperation, shared prosperity and a common security, the European Union will always be by your side, she said. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Thank you everyone. Bye.